Hello everyone out there, Michael Tingster here. Coming Back Stronger is a special edition podcast series focusing on the way food and drinks businesses are bouncing back as the world slowly starts to reopen from COVID-19. We will especially be sharing great stories on how progressive leaders are bouncing back from the pandemic by utilizing the power of technology and delivery. By listening into these conversations in the coming period, you'll be able to pick up great stories, insights, facts, as well as best practices from industry experts, independent operators to national chains who all are setting a new standard for how to operate in the new normal. Vita Mojo and Hospitality Mavericks join forces on this project due to we have shared beliefs on how tech plays a massive role in building companies that's good for people, communities, and the planet. In this episode, we have the head of operation for the Athenian, Patrick Gray, as a guest. He has a lifetime of experience from many great brands. The Athenian was born out of the love for Greek food, and they launched back in 2014 as a small street food venture, offering freshly made souvlaki prepared in the healthiest and most authentic way possible. And as you will hear in the conversation with Patrick, they have moved very fast since then, but especially during the pandemic. Patrick and I talked about how their approach has been to that journey through the pandemic, where they had ensured that people were safe first and foremost, but also how they have future-proofed their business. We talk about how they made great moves and expanded sites rapidly during the lockdown and what the future plans is. The conversation with Patrick gives you hope and belief that the industry can rise and become great again. So grab your pencil, your notebook, because there's some solid stuff in here you don't want to miss. Enjoy. Welcome to the Coming Back Stronger podcast series with me, Michael Tingster. And we have, I would say, mid-July, sneaking into mid-July, and we have had the industry reopened and a lot of things going on. We had the Chancellor out with a bit of bonus the other day on VAT and a voucher scheme. And things are still moving, either for some people very fast and for some people very slow. But the guest today will actually talk about how you can actually move very fast through a pandemic. So welcome to Patrick from Athena.
Hi, nice to be on today and join you.
Patrick, for people that doesn't know who you guys are as a brand and who you are, can you just give a bit of context, maybe your elevator pitch on the business, but also on who you are as a person and what your role is?
Of course. So the Athenian has been trading for just over 6 years. Started out as a street food operation, serving authentic Greek kind of grab and go food, and was started by two fantastic guys called Tim and Neo, both of which are authentically Greek, and they've run the business up until this year, where they'd managed to take the business to 7 sites, split across London and then down into Bristol. I've joined in the role of head of operations, which in many different businesses means different things. In our business, it means that I run the business on a day-to-day basis. Everything goes through me, and then I will report into the two owners. And we have, through the period of COVID, when we started, as I said, we were 7. And as I sit here today, we are 12, and we will be 14 by the 5th of August. So it's been an incredibly busy time for us during the lockdown and all the changes that have happened in the industry.
Yeah, if we go bigger back to a big bang in March, and then the outbreak started, a lockdown started, and it have different stages. But can you tell a bit about what happened from that initial, we need to close down restaurants to where you are now, and the journey of acquiring sites and expanding that rapidly? I think there's very few that has had those kind of success stories in all this.
Yeah, so when I'd been sort of keeping abreast of obviously what was coming through in the press around what had obviously was happening or starting to happen in China, and we'd actually started having conversations very clearly between myself and the two owners. I'd only been in the business for just over 3 weeks, And we started kind of having conversations. What do we think is going to happen? What's going to happen to the market? And the first thing I did was look at kind of our split regarding eat-in customers and then takeaway, predominantly through Deliveroo as an avenue. And I looked at the estate of kind of team members that we had and sort of decided, okay, where do we think there's risk, and most importantly, how do we deal with that? And our approach throughout the whole of COVID has been people first. And before we even went into lockdown, we spoke to our teams. We sent out a review to the teams and asked them, what do they want? And one of the key bits that we had back from our teams was that they wanted to keep their jobs, and that as long as we made the kind of right moves at the right time, they were all very happy to work. As soon as furlough was announced, we had 3 members of staff across the estate who asked to be put into furlough based on elderly relatives living in their house. But the rest of the team all made it very clear they wanted to stay employed. So we had to move very, very quickly in the early days. And I made what at the time was an incredibly unpopular decision, which was that we were staying open. And when I say it was unpopular, it was because both Tim and Neo felt that it was probably right to close down the business, because that's where the pressure was coming from not only the industry, but also from the press and the government. And my approach was, but we need to think of the longer term impact on our teams, on our people, and also our brands, because we are a small, incredibly socially media popular brand, and turning the business off and hoping one day to kind of start it back in the same position, I felt from the very get-go that was never going to happen for lots of people. And so we had to make those kind of big decisions, and I guess that's why I was brought into the business. And thankfully, it's proved to be absolutely the right decision, not only for our business, but most importantly for our people. And so in our first kind of 3 weeks of COVID, our big focus was how do we protect our teams? And so we implemented some really fantastic schemes I'm incredibly proud of. So we did food parcels for every single member of staff, because one of the first things that we looked at was we're going to lose probably around 50% of trade, even if we stay open. And so that's going to probably lead to hour cutting and those kind of things. And then we're going to have teams that aren't earning. And obviously at that point, we didn't know that furlough was going to be kind of created. So we provided food for every single member of staff in the business, and we did that for 3 months. And we provide parcels where I spoke to my supply chain and said, look, you guys have got loads of food. How can you help us out on products that we probably don't sell? And my supply chain were fantastic, and we were supported greatly through that process. So we underwrote, obviously, the cost of that. Then we did a walk to work scheme, because that was the next big bit that we were kind of getting back from the teams, which is they wanted to come to work, but they felt uncomfortable coming to work because of public transport, especially in London. So we did a really fun geographical exercise, which was that we got on Google and worked out exactly where our teams lived. And then we worked out how much time they would need to walk to work, and then we paid them to do that. So we massively increased our labour costs in doing so, but it created an environment where our staff felt safe. And then I went after PPE, and so we made sure that we had PPE. We've had PPE in stores for over 12 weeks now, and we created a process called alone zones. So before the official guidelines were in about distancing, the bit of information that we had at that time was that obviously this was spread kind of human to human, so we needed to maintain as little contact as possible. So we developed 2-meter spaces in all of our kitchens, and our teams had to stay in their zone. So we went out and marked all of our kitchens and our restaurants up, and they stayed in their little zone. And then throughout the whole process, we've continued to evolve to implement even kind of stronger processes to maintain that.
And I guess, yeah, besides that, keeping, it's great to hear you putting people first, but also in the same time, you are, during this lockdown, you are starting to expand.
Yes.
And not just one site, but in incredible amount of sites. Can you give a bit of an overview about what's happened and where you're opening and what the plans are?
Sure. So what I identified in my role is obviously my key role is to protect the business. And so what I looked at was, if we lose 50% of trade, can we afford to continue? And revenue is obviously critical to any business. And I knew that I wasn't going to have any normal levers to be able to generate further revenue, as in I wasn't going to be able to offer, marketing exercise or any of those kind of things. And so I identified that actually, if we opened a lot of stores very quickly, we could get the revenue number back that would protect the core business. And so my approach was, I reached out to Deliveroo and discussed the options of additions, which is, some people refer to them as kind of their dark kitchen side, which is where they've got these multiple brands in one space. So we started conversations with them, but then we also went super creative, and I started reaching out to friends of mine in the industry who I knew had restaurants that they'd closed down, and said to them, would they let me trade in their space? And so we went through a load of negotiations with that. And then we found some other projects in London. We even went as far as placing adverts on Gumtree to advertise to restaurant owners saying, we've got a business, we'd like to come and operate in your space. Can we do a deal? And so I went out and saw some very unusual restaurant spaces in London. But we then signed an agreement with Deliveroo to expand across their Additions estate. And that meant going and opening Reading, Brighton, and Cambridge. And that was going well because we opened Reading and were breaking records left, right, and centre. We went to Brighton to open Brighton, and one day before we opened, so we had the full team and everything in place, we got a phone call from Deliveroo HQ to tell us that they decided to close down their Addition estate because of COVID. And I obviously didn't take that particularly well, because we'd been building plans around expanding, and more importantly, we had people taken on board. And so through about another 3 weeks of some pretty high level, pretty tough conversations, we managed to convince Deliveroo that that was not the right strategy. And as part of that, we then signed up to do a subsequent 4 more. So we have now opened in COVID Brighton, Reading, Manchester, Leeds. We are opening Nottingham on the 5th of August. Reading, we all took the collective decision that we were the only site within it that was profitable. And so we understood why Deliveroo couldn't carry that cost. So we agreed that that would be closed. But we then also opened further sites in London through other opportunities. So a group called Karma Kitchen, who we're working with, and we've opened in Hackney. And we are just about to sign the deal on probably another 2 to 3 sites with Karma in the next 3 months. And we have also got our own bricks and mortar site that we were building just before COVID hit. And that got delayed by 6 weeks because obviously we couldn't physically build. But as soon as we were allowed, the restrictions were lifted so that we could start building again, we did. And that site is now complete. And we will be opening that on the 2nd week of August. And that is the first bricks and mortar site that I will be aware of that will be opening, certainly in London Bridge post-COVID. But I'd be confident to say it'll be one of the first restaurants, full stop, to be opening in the market.
What a journey. I lost track of how many sites have you then opened?
So we keep talking internally that we're opening 8 sites in 12 weeks, but it's actually it's 6 new ones, and then we had 2 that were closed down because we operate within the Box Park arena, and they chose to close the sites down. And I'll be honest, that again, I was pretty tough in my response to them because I felt it was the wrong decision at the wrong time. But we had to yield because obviously they operate with multiple operators. So we lost Shoreditch and Wembley for how long were we closed? I think we were closed for about 6 weeks. But again, we've managed to get those reopened. So as a central team, we've opened 8 sites in 12 weeks, which will break any record I've ever done in my career. And I've done 950 restaurants in 2 years. So, even for me, this is fast, but it's absolutely the right thing. And most importantly is creating jobs. And that was, huge part of our motivation to be able to do this, because we've put nearly 60 jobs back into the market. And every single member of staff that was employed with us is still employed with us and will continue to be employed with us. And that's probably our greatest success of this whole period.
Oh, wow, wow, what a journey! It's I think you're probably one of the few that has a journey like. What about the future? Is there any more like? Are you going to continue in this speed, or you're now looking a bit, observing what happens next?
So, my kind of observation period isn't actually particularly related to COVID. When you open stores at such a rapid pace, the most important thing is to protect the core of the business, to make sure that the ethics, the people, the sort of brand standards, all of those things are not only implemented but resonate. So we always intended that we would sort of get through this period. We'll probably take circa kind of 6 weeks to go back to the estate and really, really focus. Because as you expand, you always have to be very, very careful of the tail. What you don't want to do is what so many companies will do, which is expand too quickly, and then standards will drop, and obviously the customer experience. So we're going to probably spend the next 6 weeks really, really focusing on that, and then absolutely we're going again. I am currently negotiating, as I said, some stuff with Karma, but more importantly, between I would suggest another 4 bricks and mortar sites before 2021. So yeah, with those deals are in place. It's just about, can I get the people in the right place to be able to do them?
Yeah, yeah. No, that was my next question again. What about the people bit? Because we all know when we scale, one thing is the physical element, the product, the advertising, all that can be done. But the people bit and actually making sure that you have the people, the right people on the bus, and being able to train them in your standards, as you just mentioned yourself. I guess that's the biggest challenge here as well. Even in a situation where they're probably going to be, unfortunately, a lot of great people available as things are moving right now.
Yeah, I mean it's been very strange because obviously I came here to be honest, to kind of professionalize the business, to take it from kind of startup to, okay, this is a solid kind of brand that we can then build as a foundation. So there's lots of internal work that I needed to do on process, procedure, recruitment, development, all those kind of bits. And obviously, that's probably the biggest cost to our business of COVID, is that I've had to focus purely on kind of maintaining and growing the estate rather than actually really developing the estate. So absolutely, we want to bring the right people in, get them indoctrinated into the business. But it's actually funny, recruitment has been incredibly tough through COVID. So for instance, when we opened Reading, which was, crikey, nearly 8, 9 weeks ago, um, it was impossible to recruit because everyone who would have considered looking for a job obviously thought, like everybody, no one's recruiting. So therefore, no one was really looking. And now I'm in a very strange position where we are getting inundated, obviously, with CVs and things of that nature, but they are either overqualified and in a position where they're kind of desperately looking to take work, which of course we want to facilitate, but there is a reality. There's a reason why you don't give, let's say, an operations manager a general manager role, because they'll become frustrated, or they maybe don't have the current skill set. So it's a very, very weird recruitment world at the moment, because I'm getting a huge volume of applications, but probably the most diverse, unqualified type of applications. So it's actually making the process a lot harder. To give you an idea, for team members in Manchester, we had over 400 applications for the role, and we would expect somewhere around kind of 50 to 60. And so that's a massive kind of weight of expectation and a huge process. We then did an open session for trial shifts, and we ended up with 64 people who turned up in a 2 hour window for a position. And so we're all learning, and we're going to find better ways to do it and better ways to get through to the right people, because I totally appreciate how people will probably have to step down in roles to get roles, but it's about making sure that it's the right fit for them, because it has to be the right fit for the business.
It's like, the whole world have just turned upside down compared to pre pandemic. And again, and then this is another challenge, as you said, to deal with. It's almost two extremes in a way, from one extreme to the other, where you couldn't even get people to do the basic things sometimes. Uh, so delivery, I guess, has played a massive role for your business in all that. How is it now? Is that still a very big part of revenue, or has it changed the way you think about the business model in general, from bricks and mortar to more delivery focused, or are you still figuring that out as you move forward?
So again, part of what I was here to do was kind of work out what's the best Athenian, as in try and create a kind of model of something that we can sort of move forward. And one of the joys of our cuisine type and the lack of kind of direct competition that we have within it, we have every space that we can kind of move into, whether that's grab and go, quick service, even more kind of formal sit down. And so I'm probably no closer in defining what the kind of the true Athenian really is, because as I said, we just had to kind of operate and react very aggressively. Delivery is a big part of what we do. It always was. As I said, we were circa kind of 50-50 split anyway, and so it will continue to be a big part of what we do. But it's about positioning the sites and those things moving forward, so that we kind of optimize that, and that's where Additions has been very helpful to us. um, I believe that the industry will return in a very different form. I think that the customer experience, the customer journey has changed, and changed probably for good, even because the habits have been broken. So I think that you will see lots and lots of customers, myself included. I would eat out at least probably 3 to 4 times a week since restaurants have been back open. I've got little to no ambition to rush back to restaurants, and if I'm a marker of one, I'm sure there's others. So we're going to have to continue to learn and sort of pivot. We launched a virtual brand called the Athenian Plant Based, which has been really successful in COVID. And we also launched the Athenian Market, which was so that people would get sort of bare essentials. That's something that works okay, but I wanted us to be focused on our core. And so that was something that we always knew would have quite a short shelf life, and it has had. But the plant based, we will definitely continue to invest in, and expect to continue to grow that out, because it has proved to be very successful. So yeah, we're continuing on that route.
Yeah, and I guess when you talk about the Athenian plant based as well, if you think about the Greek diet as well, and how much I know that there's meat in the Greek diet, but also I know there's a lot of great plant based food there, which can easily compete with or even be better than what's already out there. So I can definitely see that as a great avenue to pursue as well. And you can see there's a lot of these plant based concepts really growing within this pandemic as well.
Yeah, I think it's because people are probably having a little bit more time to themselves to make sort of food choices. I think that's part of it. I think that we naturally have right to be in the space, as you said. The Greek, diet. There is a lot of plant-based eating that goes on in that, so we have validity, because I think when you see, let's say, kind of, I don't know, a McDonald's or somebody coming along with a plant, like I think it was Burger King with a plant based Whopper, they have no real integrity in the space. When 90% of what they sell is kind of meat. We were never in that space. You could easily come in. We had a fantastic vegetarian offer anyway. And so what I've tried to do is kind of maximize that opportunity, but also we've got one of the owners is a vegan. And so, being able to service that requirement with genuine understanding and knowledge is really important. I don't think the plant-based restaurants in the next kind of couple of years can stand purely alone, because, for instance, specifically on delivery, any kind of a tag that would be associated with a restaurant, every single restaurant now will have a vegan tag, because they'll sell one vegan product. And so if you just search vegan, you'd hit every restaurant still on delivery. So that's why we tried to kind of position and say, well, actually, if you are a vegan family, or a couple that are vegan, come here and feel comfortable to order. But actually, as part of a group dynamic, even though veganism has grown so rapidly, it's still actually a very small percentage of people. And more importantly, it stops the rest of the party being able to order, often is the case. So you end up with people therefore not placing group bookings. That's why we've kept it across both platforms. and we actually sell all of our plant-based food across our core menu. And we did that to see what would happen, and it did not affect the sales in the plant-based menu at all. So it showed us that, a purist is going to the plant-based, whereas an occasional or a flexitarian or someone like that is comfortable to have it. And there's always exploratory people because they want to find out what this isn't chicken really tastes like, and it really does taste like chicken. So it's a good alternative.
Yeah, it's super interesting. You also mentioned before that habits are broken, and I totally agree with you. What do you think, if you just had to mention three things that will change around the way we consume food, and where we consume it, and when we consume it in the coming period, the next couple of years?
So I think I've come from a world of breakfast being the kind of the I can't think of how I describe it, the kind of unicorn of the industry. Everybody thinks that breakfast is the answer to their restaurants' problems, and it so rarely is. And as I said earlier, I was lucky enough to be involved with Bill at Bill's, and we had a right to be in the breakfast market. It was a big part of what we do, but I know lots of brands kind of try and pivot into it later on. I think the breakfast market is going to really struggle and be really changed, because I think people have got very used to eating breakfast at home. Even sitting here, sort of residing in London, I think that people will probably be less inclined to have that kind of occasional, I'll grab something for breakfast and something for lunch, and then kind of eat at home. So I think the breakfast market is probably going to be, as a time of day, I think it's probably going to be most affected. I think the biggest change in actual habit is that there was a big group of people who would do delivery for couples or single people in a house. I think party booking on delivery is going to expand massively, because I think that what people will experience when they go to sit down restaurants is a level of fear and uncomfortableness that they'll trust themselves, trust the people they're with, but do they trust everybody within the restaurant and the restaurant environment? And so I think that adding in the elements of control, which is your own sort of arena, whether it's your house or an area that you choose to go to, I think will give people comfort. So I've actually already been invited to a few kind of, come around my house and we'll all order from delivery and sit down and share it, rather than let's meet up in a restaurant and have it. And I think that that is an area that's really going to change, because people still don't particularly want to cook for big parties either. And that's often why you go out. And with something like, Deliveroo or Uber or any of these things, you still have the capability, people can order what they want. And I think that's an area that's going to be a huge opportunity for people moving forward.
Super interesting take, especially the party thing. I haven't been thinking about that before, but you're absolutely right, and you will probably see that restaurants, maybe even from an infrastructure point of view, would change to have more of those areas. Yeah, super interesting point.
I've been building restaurants for the last probably 24 months that have started to seriously embrace delivery. The industry for way too long kind of fought against it. It was kind of perceived to be this kind of mafia that came in, took money from you in commission and stole away your kind of trade and your takeaway. But the businesses that embraced delivery have proved to obviously be successful, and moving forward, that will be the case even more so. So, for instance, within Byron, we were building restaurants where there were separate entrance and waiting areas for delivery drivers. I think you'll see more and more of that the case. I know Itsu have done it really well, where they've built in kind of delivery hatches where riders can come up. It's going to have to become more and more part of restaurant design, about considering what does it mean as an experience, because as an in customer, it's horrendous. You walk into a restaurant, sit down, and then watches 50 guys stood in crash helmets waiting in a restaurant. It's not an inviting, enjoyable experience, and customers will only put up with that for so long. And especially, it's very weird, we always talked about it, the winter elements of it, because obviously through the winter you've then got the issue of the door being open all the time, because you've got riders coming in and out. So these are areas that you will definitely see, real progression and development within the industry. And I think that people enjoy eating in the home more, but still return to the habits of they don't really want to cook 7 days a week, 3 meals a day. And it's one of the things that we considered when we were looking at do we stay open or not. There is, if you believe the statistics, there's about 40 million meals eaten out of home a week in the United Kingdom. And so, as was proved with the supply chain issues that happened during COVID, which was all of my suppliers had way too much food and didn't know what to do with it because all the restaurants were closing down, whereas supermarkets couldn't get it into the supermarket quick enough because you not only had people trying to go to supermarkets and sort of stockhold, but more importantly, there were these 40 million meals that were having to be serviced from somewhere. And so, as I said, I think you'll see more of people wanting to be at home, but the requirement of cooking still is going to inspire people not to just cook it themselves. They will always look for alternatives.
Yeah, but also guess then when we have been home cooking more, including myself and my family, and our cooking skills have again got a notch up in a way. So I guess, as you say, when you go out, what you said as well with the breakfast market, it really has to be good when you're spending your hard-earned money, and maybe even you're gonna be a bit tight on money for a period.
Absolutely. One of the things that I've absolutely loved about the Edition route is that it takes restaurants back to what restaurants really should have been around, which is I'm judged purely on my food, not on how much money I've spent on the refit, not how cleverly I've trained my my front of house teams and all those kind of things. It came down to the quality of the food, and we've continued. Lots of people have tried to stay open and have not done so successfully. Lots of businesses I know of have reopened delivery only and then closed it down as well because the quality of the food and most importantly, value for money. In fact, something Bill taught me years and years ago was we're not trying to be cheap. We're trying to offer value, and value is what people respect the most. So if something needs to cost £10, then it needs to cost £10, and you shouldn't kind of apologize for that. Supermarkets shouldn't sell 4 pints of milk for £1 because it doesn't cost £1 to make it. So it's ridiculous that we're charging less than it makes. But same in restaurants, we have to offer value to customers, and customers are more savvy. They've been going back to supermarkets and realizing the price of meat, the price of vegetables, price of cheese. And so we've got to make sure we constantly offer value. And that's part of one of the big projects that I've been working on, which is looking through our menu and making sure that we are offering great value everywhere. And we're not kind of taking lazy wins of, the old ways of, Coke at £3 on a restaurant menu. It's not going to stack up anymore. It's not right. Everyone knows the price of a can of Coke. You can't charge an extra £2 just because it helps your margin. You need to charge what it costs you to serve to a customer. And that's exactly what we've done. So, for instance, through COVID, cans of Coke on delivery are only £1. That's very strategic on my side, which is everyone knows what it costs. So why shouldn't we charge them that? Why should we just take the opportunity to, because people will remember those kind of things and come back and order more. And average order value is nowhere near as exciting to me as repeat order customer. That's what I really want. I want customers to feel like they get great value, not that they get some bill shock and suddenly going, how on earth did I just spend £30 on, a couple of wraps and a drink? That's not what we want to achieve.
Yeah, it's quite interesting using the term the savvy consumer. We had Brian Moore, who is a retail and a leisure expert on, and he's talked about the consumer were savvy before, but they are ultra savvy when they come back after this. They will know exactly, as you say, what everything costs in different channels. So be aware that you don't try to trick them into something, because they will figure it out and they will tell other people that's what you're doing. So yeah, so it's gonna be a very different world to operate in. What about technology? Technology is also an interesting thing. There's been a lot of technology implemented faster than ever, I think, across the industry. How has it been with you guys? What have you done with technology, and what role does that have right now in boosting the performance of your business?
So we used tech in the very early days for safety. That was absolutely critical to me. So we use a great company called Trail, which is where all of our documentation is kept on an app, and therefore it lives in the cloud. And so where we needed to make very quick changes to sort of health and safety process and procedure, that allowed me to do that, and most importantly, we were able to track it. And if we didn't have technology at that kind of standard, where historically, if you change something, to train it out to an estate is very, very hard to do, but more importantly, to make sure it continues to do is even harder. So, for instance, when we implemented temp checks on staff, if I didn't have the technology to know that I can go on and look at a report and see every single member of staff when they arrive, what their temperature was, is it being done religiously every time they go in and out of the kitchen, all those kind of things, it's allowed us to do that. We've used technology or expanded technology in things like CCTV, so that we make it clear to our customers that obviously they're on CCTV to try and enforce things like social distancing and stuff, because obviously trading through the whole period, it's been quite shocking how little people have kind of followed guidance in certain areas. And, as I said, my main focus was to protect my teams. And then the biggest change we made on technology is we've been working with Vitamojo to create contactless ordering completely. Using kiosk ordering, and we've rolled that already into 3 sites, and we're rolling it across the estate at a very quick process. I think Leon had a project they were working on which was meant to be 24 months, and we're trying to do it in 6 weeks. So it's been a fast move. We're really excited by the results. First of all, definitely as in a contact element, it means that I'm running restaurants now. There is zero contact between my team and the customers, which is fantastic for a safety side. But then we've had to address, okay, but how do we still bring experience into the journey? Because obviously, there's a reason why people come into restaurants. But it's also helped us purely financially as well. So by people ordering through kiosk, we've seen about a 12% lift in AOV. In those sites, because customers, when they're stood in front of a tablet, are more likely to order more without kind of order guilt, which is well known within the industry, where people don't like to order a lot of food at the same time. But there's also another thing, which is it's a more natural journey. If you stood at a till and said to every customer, do you want this? Are you going large with this? Are you going to add this? It feels a very hard sell. Whereas with a tablet, allowing a customer to journey around it themselves, we've seen that they've actually increased on things like sides and those kind of bits, because there's also photos through Vitamojo, which obviously my menus don't have photos. And so that, again, because we have a product that we have to kind of introduce a lot of customers to, they maybe don't understand what souvlaki is or gyros. And so that's really helped us as well. So, that's a really, really exciting venture. And as I said, we're going to do that. And then my final bit on tech is that I've been involved in some think tanks for delivery, and I'm probably going to get in trouble because I don't think they've actually announced this to the public yet, but they are launching table ordering service through delivery. So you'll be able to sit in my restaurant and order via delivery. And then obviously that won't have the commission attached to it that a normal delivery customer will have. So it kind of does what Vita does, but what it does is it means it's obviously on every person's phone, and they can literally sit there, order it, and then we create things called virtual tables. So we can tell customers, your food will be here, and you just come and pick it up, and there it is. Which is going to be a really cool project. So we're launching that in the next couple of weeks, and really interested to see how that one comes off.
Yeah, I've definitely seen something floating around in the environment, so I think it must be out that they are working on it. I don't think you're breaking a business secret then. And it's super interesting with all the technology and how rapidly. Do you think you would have done it as rapidly if it hasn't been because of the pandemic?
Um, No, they were projects we were going to work on. We're just working on them quicker and, to be honest, more in real time. These are the kind of projects we would have worked on in the background, and we would have done probably more robust testing and all those kind of things. Whereas I've had to make the decision of, okay, we need to get these out there, and we're going to kind of learn as we go. And as I said, one of the biggest challenges of COVID is we've been in a reactive state for kind of, probably 16 weeks now. So it's exhausting, but it's a huge undertaking, and it means we're going to fail and we're going to get stuff wrong, and we need to hope that people give us the capacity to do so and understand that. I actually said to a friend of mine the other day, I fail more than anyone I know, but that's because I try more than anyone I know. And, I want that kind of mentality in the business. So with the tech side, of course, we probably would have taken longer, but we would have got there because they were logical moves for the business to take. But the joy of this kind of issue and pandemic and thing is that innovation will be rife because people have to answer the question, which is how do we inspire and encourage people to continue coming to restaurants, continue ordering, and continuing believing in brands. And some won't make it, but I've been in the industry for 25 years nearly, and this has always been the case. Our industry is always going through some kind of unusual situation or a crisis or competition. We're in such a competitive industry, and so this I've approached this as another one. It's obviously such a severe one, it's such a big one, but went through the recession, the financial crisis. We've gone through so many major changes that this, to me, you will see some fantastic innovation coming out of this. And I'm sure there's somebody sat at home right now with an idea and will do something incredible that will change the market. And I'm so excited to see that, and I hope that all the little things we're doing will keep us, right at the front. And it's definitely flattened the playing field, because the big businesses that were overspending and under delivering, they won't be able to do that anymore. And that's what's really great, is because independent businesses that are self-financed and, most importantly, are financially sensible, will be the ones that will come through, and the ones that are kind of trying to land grab and buy success, they just won't have the money to do that. And that's really good, because, as I said, it makes it a much fairer kind of market, and that's what I'm really looking forward to.
It's quite interesting you're saying there, because actually all innovation starts with small 1% progress all the time. And it's a bit like, the innovation you've gone through is because you stayed open. We talked a bit about that before we went on the podcast. And one of the things I've been saying to people that I've been talking with, said, like, try to trade in some kind of way, because you will learn something you would never learn in normal trading condition. If you fail or not, that's not so important. The most important is that you learn and adapt very quickly. And the speed of organizations, how their teams can move and how they are, working the dynamics together, that's going to be critical for the future, because you're going to be, as you say, it's not over yet. There's more waves coming, and you need to move very fast through those waves and adapt very quickly. And there's going to be great opportunities within that for the nimble operator. I totally agree with you.
Absolutely. Looking at the big operations, and as I said, I've been involved in them in different points in my career. I know how difficult it is to affect change, and in this market, you have to be able to change in a minute, not in a week, not in a month. You need to be able to, do it. And I said to you before, obviously, we came online. One of the things that I did was that I created an Instagram live for my estate. So we created a private page for every team member that they could join. And what it allows me to do is to speak to my team every single day, direct to them. And that is a huge benefit, because not only it means that communication is clear, honest, not misinterpreted, not represented, but more importantly, it's allowed us to keep moving and keep changing. And as I said, we've done loads of things through COVID that haven't worked, but we're not dwelling on those, because to me, zero sales and zero jobs is the ultimate failure. And so anything above that was success. And actually, where we've ended up is beyond anyone's wildest dreams. But most importantly, this is just the beginning of what we want to do, because, as I said, we want great jobs for people, and that has been our biggest ambition. And I'm so proud that in 2 weeks' time we are handing out pay rises to the whole estate, as in we will then present, ready for Q3, a complete restructuring of pay across the estate. And we're only able to be in that position because of what we've achieved during this period, because we want to be a great employer. And obviously right now, we lots of employers out there thinking about wage cuts, wage freezes, paying minimum wage, all those things. We don't want to take that opportunity. We want to go above and beyond, because that's what our teams have done during this period. They've continued to come to work. I made it very clear, if I was going to ask my teams to do this, I was going to do it. So every single day in COVID, under all of the restrictions, I I've gone through hundreds of face masks and more liters of antibacterial than I'd like to realize, because I've been front and center with my teams in this challenge. But as I said, we're only at the beginning, because yeah, there probably is most likely to be more waves, but there is a intrinsic change to our industry, and we've got to make sure that we continue to challenge ourselves to keep right up at the front of that, and continue listening to the customers. And the customers tell us; they'll tell us through their ordering habits what they want, and we need to make sure we're in a position to do that. And we need to be financially prudent. And as I said, that's another really important part of the industry that has been so sorely forgotten over years. It's kind of spend as much money as you can, and then when you run out, go and find someone else to give you more money. That's not how we run this business. It's not how we will run this business. We will spend what we've got, and we will fight hard to get as much as we can to invest in the estate.
Yeah, that you actually covered very well my last question I always have on this episode. Is about what is your top three advice to other leaders out there. So if we just should summarize them, Patrick, in top line, your top three advice to leaders out there, they should start thinking about now, as we are in this, I would call it temporary phase of, we are just out of lockdown, we're moving into some kind of new environment. What is your top three advice? I think you've said it during the podcast, but what would it be to other leaders out there in the industry?
I don't want to sound too cheesy, but for me, it's be brave, be prudent, and be honest. And I think those three things will see everybody through this challenge, because I think that being brave is critical, taking decisions at the right time, and in a timely manner. I think is critical. I think being prudent, as in not spending what you haven't got, and making sure that you are protecting cash, because we know there will be further challenges, down the road. And then being honest, I think is probably the thing I would say to everybody in the industry, which is telling the truth sometimes is very hard. People sometimes really don't like to hear it. And that means talking to your teams, talking to your landlords, talking to your customers, telling them the truth, and then being brave enough to see how that kind of lands, rather than trying to spin it or deliver it in an incorrect way. I've seen some appalling behavior of brands, not being honest with their estates during this period. And I understand why they haven't. They've kind of told what they need to, but we took the decision very early on. We were going to tell everybody the absolute truth, and sometimes that was really really tough, because they were conversations of, we're not sure we're going to survive this. We don't know how it's going to work out. We don't know if we'll ever open or whatever. But I think it's the right strategy, because right now everybody deserves to hear the truth. So
Yeah, because you can take the right actions from there on, no matter how bad it is.
yeah, and it brought what I found in my business is brought everybody together, because it means we're not hiding anything. We are in this together, and as I said, that will be the mentality that I most hope we maintain once we move away from this kind of reactive state, which is a togetherness, which is I got sent over a video from Delivery. We did some filming for them, and we've been filming a Channel 4 documentary during this the whole COVID situation. And I sent over a short video, and it was around the food that we provided for the frontline workers. And I sent a message out to my whole estate and just said, guys, this is what you've done. This is what you've done in your sacrifice, in your hard work. And my brother-in-law is a doctor, and he constantly has said to me, that he has obviously received huge amounts of admiration and great, lovely well wishes and all those kind of things. And he kept kind of trying to share that with me, because he was like, it's people like you in your business that maybe in these kind of situations people forgot. And I can't scream and shout enough about how incredible my team have been, because I will be honest enough to admit it was very very scary in the early days, going to work, not knowing what's going on. Are we going to be safe? Can we protect ourselves and our teams? Is this the right decision? But together we managed to come through that, and we will pay the benefit of it. And that is that we've got a business that is not only stable, but more importantly is very ambitious to move forward.
Patrick, absolutely amazing journey you told us about here, and what of a lovely optimism, and again about the future of our industry, and some great advice here, and some really good nuggets for other people to be inspired from. So thank you so much for coming on, talking about the Athenians' journey in all this, and your own. And I send you all the power and energy you need to get through the next couple of waves, whatever that's gonna hit us. And I'm sure you're gonna do very well. It sounds very exciting what's going on.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, and lovely to chat.
Wow, Patrick, what great energy and optimism for the future here for the industry. And also, thank you very much for all your great and solid advice for people out there. It looks very optimistic when we had a conversation like this. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please give us a like, share it with people you think would benefit from it, rate it, and let us know what you think. Coming Back Stronger series is brought to you by the wonderful people at Vitamojo, the digital partners for ambitious operators, who are helping great brands as Leon, Yo Sushi, Farmer J, and other leading operators transforming their businesses with technology. Check them out at software.vitamojo.com or contact them directly at nick.lidl@vitamojo.com. Thanks for listening and keep innovating.